Peace be upon you. This is Saeed Mirza from MillionaireReason.com, and in today's talk, I wanted to respond to some comments that I've received on my YouTube videos. Usually, what I used to do was just ignore the comments that were made on my channel, but recently I've started to engage with people, and I've quickly noticed that besides the fact that people have a lot of spare time on their hands, the questions I get or the comments I get are pretty much the same across the board. So it's not really an efficient use of my time to make respond to comments or respond to arguments that basically repeat themselves. So I figured it would be easier to kind of just do a periodic video in which I respond to the comments. So for those people who are interested, who are sincere, and who are interested in engaging and I want to do a dialogue, obviously it's one of those things that you don't want to feed the trolls, and there's a lot of trolls on my channel who just glory in their arrogance and their ignorance, or they want to make fun or make mockery of God's religion. That's an aside, but I do think that there are some people who are serious, they are sincere, misguided, but they are trying to find the path, and the channel is made for those people. That's what my initial drive was, to create a channel where to proclaim the truth and get people to see, and especially get the Muslims, the Sunnis, Shias, to get to see that what their parents were doing was idol worship, and that's not what the Quran is talking about. So I'm going to go over here some comments and I'll respond to them. Obviously, this is kind of an impromptu talk, so I don't have the verses out of, prepared for me, but I do have some verses in my head, or, responses. So I'll try to make this concise and also useful. So, okay, so the first response is, how are you denying the hadith? Don't you see it says in the Quran in many places that we must obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Well, if you do, then you are arrogant for rejecting this. Actually, I am not arrogant, and the reason is that I changed my viewpoint. I was born and bred in a Sunni Muslim household in Karachi, Pakistan, as I have previously alluded to. So I am not arrogant. I grew up with the brainwashing and everything. I used to believe in all this stuff, but God guided me. He opened my eyes and I could see. So I changed my viewpoint. So it's not about being arrogant. It's about following the truth. Now, how are you denying the hadith? Well, I'm denying the hadith because I'm saying that it's a bunch of fictions and falsehoods written down by Bukhari. That's how I'm denying the hadith. Okay, don't you see it said in the Quran in many places that we must obey the Prophet? Now, here's the thing. This, we must obey the Prophet. Actually, in the Quran it says obey the messenger. And I asked this individual, and obviously it's a waste of time to argue with him because he's not gonna wanna really engage. He's just got these catechisms, these phrases. So we must obey the Prophet. In the Quran it says to obey the messenger, yes. And I made a complete separate video where I've looked at all the instances in the Quran where obey the messenger is used, and you will see quickly, if you look at the context, that is talking about obeying the messenger when he was alive. Obeying a dead person is not possible. No matter how many mind tricks you do or illogical leaps you make, you can't obey a dead person. You can only obey a living person. And in the Quranic imperative to obey the messenger was for his time. And so I asked this individual, which I knew was going to be a waste of time, but I said to him that you need to bring me the specific verse where it says obey the messenger, so then we can look at the context and you will see that it's that this command is directed towards the believers when Muhammad was alive. And obviously then he went into this whole cat and mouse game where he didn't want to bring the verse. He wanted me to bring the verse, which because you're dealing with people who are lazy as well. They're not going to do the work, so they're just going to run around and make you run around. So that kind of fizzled out, and at the end, my comment to him was, you don't want to bring up any verse containing obey the prophet now, because there is no verse that says obey the prophet. There are verses that say obey the messenger, but even if he did bring one of these verses, then I could show him that it's not talking about obeying the messenger when he was dead. So I think what I'm trying to say is that if you want to argue with people like that, the first thing you should do is tell them to bring the evidence, right? That's what the Quran says, hatu burhanakum, bring your evidence. This is actually, I found this to be very insightful. Brother Gerrans was the one who, in his work, the Quran Complete Revelation, he had a page and it was written on there, hatu burhanakum. So bring your evidence. Where does it say that? Let's bring that out and then let's discuss it. That's how things are done. Okay, now, this guy, 1,000 Quranists, 1,000 opinions, but they are all united in one thing. Quran is clear, but still don't know what is really shirk, kufr, taghut, location of Makkah and Bakka, history. It doesn't mean hadithers are right. They are at least more unified than you guys. If there were no hadithers and only Quranists, the number of Quranists sect would have been in billions. And then there was like a emoji with laughing or whatever. So all I can say is that's your fantastical point of view, really. We do know what shirk is, what kufr is, taghut. All of this stuff is already done. If you read my book, Really Not Reason, God's Arguments in the Quran, I go into depth about what shirk is according to Quran. But unfortunately, the shirk doesn't really sit well with you because you are mushrikeen. You understand? The Muslims, the Sunnis are mushrikeen because even though they do not say that Muhammad is a partner with God, for all intents and purposes, they do consider him as a partner with God. And just to give you an example of that, is that they take the law from both the Quran and the Hadith, which is shirk, because you are ascribing a partner in the domain of legislation, in the domain of law with God. That is shirk. It says in the Quran, if they have partners who legislate what God has not legislated. So there you go. That's shirk. Let's talk about kufr. Kufr is obviously denial in God. Taghut is the forces of evil, the satanic system that we live in. Location of Makkah and Bakka. Well, guess what? The location of Makkah is not known. It's lost. That site is lost. There's theories as to where this is. And, it doesn't matter. Who cares? What is happening in Makkah, Saudi Arabia, is pure idol worship. Muhammad was not doing idol worship. Ibrahim was not doing idol worship. Think about that. Ibrahim, the man whose whole narrative in the Quran is that he turned away from the idols that his forefathers were worshipping, and he broke them, right? He left the biggest one standing, and then when they questioned him, he said, ask him, he knows. And then this guy left his people and then moved somewhere else. Is he going to go and then create another idol and then start circling it and worshiping it, prostrating to it? And if you don't see that, if you don't understand that, that circling something 7 times or prostrating to it or kissing it is not idol worship, if you that's your stance, then unfortunately you're lost. You are lost. You are misguided. Nothing I can do about it. See, you don't see it. It is idol worship, whatever you want to dress it up as. It is idol worship. It is idol worship. You're revering a stone idol, and you think it's important, it's sacred, or something like that. So, anyway, the whole thing about the unity, you can see in the Palestinian issue how much unity there is among the Sunnis, right? Who is lifting a finger to help them? So there's your unity. There's no unity. Their hearts are divided. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, this one is funny. Everything the Prophet SAW, which is an acronym for Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, said is lies, but everything you say is right. And then he's got the emoji with the I guess the laughing with the tears in his eyes. Okay, actually, everything the Bukhari wrote are lies. And everything the Quran is saying is the truth. So this is really the stand. Follow Bukhari into the fire. I mean, nothing, no skin off my back. but do understand that Bukhari just wrote lies and attributed them to Prophet Muhammad. Okay, let's see the next one. Haha, the Quran doesn't explain you the Hajj, so you don't have to do it. And then again the emoji. But Quran explains all things. Now your version of Islam is full of holes. Okay. So okay, let's take an example here. You might find this enlightening. Hindus, they have an idol. It's called the Shiv Lingam, and just Google pictures of it. Okay, just type Shiv Lingam Hindu, and you'll find it. It's like a black, it looks like something, but I'm not gonna get into it. It looks it's a smooth stone. Okay, it doesn't have any hands or feet or eyes, right? And they do rituals on it, right? And then they consider it to be sacred. Now, if a Hindu said that doing these rituals with this thing is Hajj, and he passed that down the line, and that's what you inherited, and then. When he's doing all these things, then he says, look, I've been doing this for centuries, and this was passed down to me by the prophets, etc., etc., and you're saying this is idol worship. And then I would say, yes, it is idol worship, because the Quran doesn't talk about doing these rituals with this black stone, the Shiv Lingam. And then he would say, well, your Quran is full of holes then. Your Islam is full of holes. Your Quran doesn't explain everything. You see? So you just created some ritual, a pagan ritual, and then you started calling it something that the Quran calls a certain activity, the Hajj. You started calling it Hajj, and then centuries later you said the Quran doesn't tell me how to worship or put milk on this Shiv Lingam. Then the Quran, how can the Quran explain everything? You see what I'm getting at? I hope this analogy was apt. Muslims worship the stone idol, the Kaaba. They circle it 7 times, right? That's the highlight of the Hajj. Let's not kid ourselves. And also they try to kiss that black stone. They compete on doing that, and people get hurt doing that. I've witnessed this. I've been there. I've seen it. I've done it, so I know. It's not like this is something I read in the book. And the frenzied mob. You should just look up YouTube videos of this, and then they go around and throw the 7 stones at the pillars that are supposed to represent the devil, and then they run between 2 rock outcroppings, which they call the Safa and Marwa 7 times. You see the 7 going on. And the stone, obviously the stones are a central part of this Hajj. The Muslims have been doing this, and obviously their forefathers, the pagan Arabs, who never really left the religion, by the way, this is what it is. They're still following their pagan religion. They named their ritual Hajj because it's in the Quran, and then they started saying, look, the Quran talks about the Hajj, but it doesn't give us the details. This is what's happening. This is the same thing with Salat. You're doing this Zoroastrian prayer. This is Zoroastrian prayer, the Salat, namaz, as it's called in Persian. You're doing that 5 times. And then you say, look, the Quran doesn't say 5 times. So the Quran is incomplete. So this is the kind of circular logic, unfortunately, you're dealing with here. So really, that's what it is. Okay, here's another one. So the Quran is complete, but you make up the prayer yourself. Say whatever you like. So you just created your way of sulah because Quran doesn't show you all things. Okay. Now this is again going against God's word. This is kufr. This is actually kufr. This is the root meaning of denial. See, you say you accept the Quran. It is a word of God. And you say that the Quran is detailed. You say the Quran is clear. You say the Quran is complete. Why? Because the Quran says all these things, right? So you say, yeah, we accept all of this, but you don't really accept that. You don't, in your heart of hearts, you don't really accept that, because if you did, you would abandon your prayer. Because if the Quran is complete and the Quran is not giving you your prayer that you've been doing, guess what? That's an innovation. So abandon it. But they won't abandon it because, that's abandoning their religion that the forefathers practiced. Why they can't do that? So they go through all these mental contortions and gymnastics, sort of feats, and to say basically that their prayer, that the Quran is incomplete, okay? Because their prayer is not in there. No, the Quran is complete. Your prayer is not in the Quran, because the Quran, when it talks about Salat, and I know this is kind of a difficult thing to understand, but the word Salat in the Quran means duty. Brother Gerrans has done a lot of work on this subject. It's everything is cross-referenced and it's available for those who are inquisitive, who want to know. If you just wanna, argue, that's another story. But those people who wanna know, the Quran talks about, the word salat in the Quran means duty. It's an obligation. It's upholding something. You see, the Quran gives us. And I'm working on this, God willing, should be done. But we need to extract these commandments from God, these commands, these orders from God, and upholding those orders. That is the salat. See, uphold the salat. And yes, prayer in the sense of worshiping God is a salat. It is one of the salats in the Quran, and the method of that specific prayer is in the Quran. You just have to look for it. See, it says to stand up for God. It talks about doing the ablution. It talks about glorifying God, remembering Him, reading the scripture. These are all part of that salat. The whole issue with you wrangling with those people who follow the Quran and saying your salat is not the salat we do. I'm sorry, your salat is not authorized by God. You're facing a stone idol. Your insistence on facing this stone idol in Makkah, Saudi Arabia, which you call the Qibla, which is not what the Quran means by this word Qibla. That's another subject. Just look up on YouTube my videos on Qibla. This work. It's all, the information is out there. If you're sincere about it, you'll find it. If you're not sincere about it and you're just trying to argue, then that's a different story. But anyway, it says to God belongs wheresoever you turn, there is the face of God. And it is not piety, it is not virtue to turn your face in the direction of the east or the west. But virtue is good deeds, and then it goes into what virtue is. So this sort of like, I don't know what the word is. I guess it's just childish stuff, really, How do you pray? Because the exact method of prayer is so important. And what has this prayer achieved you? Really, that's the question. Okay. Moving on. Okay, this guy is funny. He says, I'm not a Muslim, but I think that Quranists are Muslims who feel uncomfortable with the portrayal of Muhammad in the Hadiths, and they have valid reasons for that. The Hadiths, while important for understanding Islamic tradition, can sometimes contain narratives that Quranists find problematic when it comes to the character of Muhammad. Okay. Now, see, this guy, he's not a Muslim. So obviously, he's not a Quranist. He doesn't believe in the Quran alone. He's not a Muslim. But he thinks that the Muslims feel uncomfortable, and this is the reason for this Quran alone thing. That because we somehow feel that how Muhammad is portrayed in the Hadiths is not politically correct. So I responded to him and I said, you base your knowledge on assumptions. And then he said, I would rather call it a critical analysis of the material followed by some deductive reasoning. And no, you just said, I think that Quranists are Muslims who feel uncomfortable. I think the first thing you would do is you would ask a Quranist or Quran alone follower, why do we reject Hadith? But this is the critical reasoning that he has, that he is not going to do all that. He's just going to base his reasoning on assumptions. And now, we got into basically an argument where he's trying to defend his position, which was ridiculous. Now, as a Quran alone follower, I can assure you that it is not because I feel that Muhammad is portrayed negatively or some things about him that obviously are not politically correct anymore, that are in the Hadith, that I've left Hadith. I have left the Hadith because it's a bunch of lies, and the character of Muhammad in the Quran is nothing like the character of Muhammad in the Hadith, which tells you these are separate persons. This is a fictional character and this is a real character. The real character is in the Quran. He made mistakes, and he was at many times distraught, and he did not know anything about the future. He did not know what would have happened to him or with us, whereas in the Hadith literature, Muhammad is he knows what's going to happen in the future, and he's going to save his people, his ummah, from the fire. And in the Quran, it says that all he's gonna do is he's gonna disown the people, his own people, and he will say, "My Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned." So the hadith are just fiction; they're lies. The Quran is the truth, and the Quran never says to follow any other scripture besides it, any other literature. So this is the reason for throwing away the hadith literature. That's really what it is. But this guy, obviously he doesn't really understand anything. He doesn't really know what the problem is with the religion of Islam, and he's just gonna go on and on. Anyway, the fun of being a YouTuber, I guess. This one is it's kind of a long rant, I guess. I'll just kind of briefly gloss over it here. You're dealing with people who've been born and bred. They have drunk the lies of Bukhari to such an extent that their whole worldview, their whole idea about what happened, the history about Islam is completely fictional. It's bizarre. If you read the Quran, you see a completely different narrative. But anyway, let's look at what he says. Where did you get your title, Saeed? Descendants of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, use the title Saeed or Sayyid. Displaying name of Prophet Muhammad next to the name of Allah is not shirk. Okay, let's put that aside, this whole where did you get your title. Actually, it's my name, Saeed. It means one who is happy in Arabic. Anyway, displaying name of Prophet Muhammad next to the name of Allah is not shirk. Okay, says you. It is shirk, and I already mentioned in the beginning of this talk why it's shirk, because the video actually was just a picture of a masjid, a regular masjid. Usually they have the names of Allah and Muhammad side by side, and that video was supposed to symbolize this whole thing in the religion of Islam, where Muhammad is taken to be a lawgiver besides God. You see, they're both giving laws, Muhammad and God. God via the Quran and Muhammad via Hadith. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of lies here involved. The first lie is that Bukhari was a liar. He wrote the Hadith, which were a bunch of lies, and then he came up with this science or whatever, the transmission science that's based on how long someone's beard is, really. So he, did all that work, and he's gonna go in the fire for that. But anyway, so this guy Bukhari, he did that. He attributed these lies to Prophet Muhammad. So that's the first layer of lie. The second layer of lies is that the Prophet Muhammad himself was legislating. He was basically giving commands. With the command of God. That's another lie, because the Prophet, the Messenger Muhammad, he came with the Quran alone. He only came with the Quran, okay? That was the only thing that was revealed to him. And the legislation is in the Quran. And Muhammad himself was told to follow the Quran, to obey the law of God, to judge by the law of God in the Quran. See? So this is what it really boils down to. So Muhammad was never a lawgiver. Just like Moses was never a lawgiver, they were given the law from God. So anyway, so this is what I'm saying, that the word shirk in the Quran, the way it's used, is not just saying that God had a son or God has daughters. It is also taking others as legislators, as others as lawgivers besides God. That's also shirk. That's what the video was about. See, the thing is, people don't really try to understand what I'm talking about. They just rush into this whole, you don't know what shirk is, you don't know what kufr is, and unless I say that Muhammad is the son of God, I am not committing shirk. That's unfortunately not what the Quran is saying. See, the shirk is in the Quran is subtle. I think I wrote in my book, one of the chapters is called Making Partners with God, which is shirk, and you should read it, because I bring Quranic evidence that shirk is simply just saying God has a son. That is shirk, but there are other flavors of shirk, if you will. Okay, you will be able to sell your ideas to Islam hating people. No, actually, I'm just proclaiming the truth. People can take what they want from that. You and these people are not different than Prophet Muhammad's own uncles, Abu Lahab and Abu Jahil. One died in the Battle of Badr, etc., etc. But he's basically saying, I'm gonna die, I guess, a bad death or whatever. Everyone dies, man. You won't live forever either. Anyway, when Muslims were only few hundreds in Medina, all the non-believers tried to eliminate Muslims from the face of the earth. See, this is all the stories they have. We don't know what happened. What you're trying to do in this video is not new. Okay. Never said it was new. People have tried in the past and failed miserably. Okay. It's not about failing or succeeding. It's about doing one's duty. Do you know what happened to false prophet Musaylima? Musaylima was a Christian, declared himself and his wife as prophets. He was killed by a slave. Even the non-Muslims at that time could identify Musaylima as a liar. This is the veiled threats you get when you question, what the shirk they're doing and the lies they're spinning. You get threats like that you're gonna get killed. Oh, okay, fine. From God we come and to God we return, right? Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Okay, next one. And then you get these guys that completely just, it's like, have you taken your meds, bro? This one, the Quranists are the ones that keep one leg in shirk and one leg in Islam, because only the fire of Ibrahim is salam. You are dead if you change letters. Allah protected. If the Quranists are the diggers who dig the wall using inshallah. I have no idea what that means. I really don't. Okay, this guy is this is interesting. You see how they drop their faith at the drop of a hat. This guy, I demand you to prove authenticity and preservation of Al-Quran to me. I'll use your modus operandi to provide preservation of a hadith. Your life story demonstrates your lack of research and interest in Islam. Allah misguides whomever he wills. Quran chapter 6 verse 125. You were continuously creating straw men to justify your ideology. Fear God and propagate haqq. Why can't you just write justice, man? That's what the word haqq means, right? But haqq means makes you sound intelligent, I guess. Anyway. So my response to this guy was, you now deny the Al-Quran's authenticity and want me to prove it. This is your faith in God's revelation. Think about this. At the drop of a hat, this guy has dropped the Quran's authenticity. He wants me to prove that the Al-Quran is from God. This is your faith. And then I called him out on it, and then he's going, I'm not objecting on authenticity of the Quran, but want you to prove it to me. This is the kind of nonsense that, how do you even respond to that? If you are able to prove preservation of Quran, I will use your method to prove preservation of narrations. Okay. Look, man, the fact of the matter is that you are objecting to the authenticity of the Quran. You want me to prove it to you. You understand? Like, why do I need to prove to you the authenticity of the Quran? Why? You don't believe in it or what? That's exactly what he doesn't believe in it. It's just, to him, it's his whole thing is that, his ancestors brought this thing down. They preserved it. That's the other thing they say. This guy in the comment section, it's kind of funny and sad. This guy says, how is the Quran preserved? I know Allah said that he will preserve it, but how did he preserve it? I don't know. He preserved it. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to get me into that trap that the Saudis preserved it. See, the Saudis and the Hafiz and all this, nonsense. But the fact of the matter is, God preserved it. And really, that is one of the miracles of the Quran, that the people to whom God preserved this, they were unable to change it, even though they wanted to change it so bad they could taste it. You understand? They had to come up with this whole literature, the Hadith, in order to change the meanings of the verse of the Quran. This is what the Hadith does. See, people are not understanding the game of the Hadith. The game of the Hadith is to create a separate religion, to provide the foundation for this religion, and to pervert the meanings of the verses of the Quran, to pervert the meanings of the words of the Quran and the understanding of the verses of the Quran. That's the game of the hadith. You have to, don't be naive. Try to understand what this hadith is for. This is not something that just accidentally happened. There's a whole calculus behind it. These the Bukharis and all these guys, they're very intelligent men. I remember, this is not my original thought, by the way. Brother Gerrans is the one who is an introduction in the Quran, a complete revelation, mentioned it, and I was very shocked at the real politic of how these deceivers work, how intelligent they are. They don't need to straight up go against something. They can divert it, see. And so the name of the game with the hadiths is that what they do is that they get you diverted from the Quran's message into these stories and fictions and idols. This is what the hadiths are doing. This is why the religion of Islam has its main goal is to get you diverted from the Quran. This is the game. This is how the religion of Islam works. This is what it says. It's to stop you from sincerely engaging with the Quran. It changes the context. The hadiths change the context of the verses. It changes the meanings of the words. It takes words from the Quran like sunnah and salat and hajj, and then defines them in a different way. And so you get completely misguided, misled. This is the beauty of it. See, you have to try to understand what's going on here. So anyway, coming back to this guy, his whole worldview is shaped by hadith. So for him to say, how was the Quran preserved? He's not believing God when God says that we have revealed the zikr and we are custodians over it. He's not believing God's statement. He to him, men preserved it, and it's the men. It's the worship of men. This is what I'm trying to say. It's shirk. Again, see, shirk is worship of others besides God. So he only believes in the Quran because he has been told that his ancestors and the ancestors before him, they preserved it. He doesn't believe in the Quran because God is saying he preserved it, and that it is free from any attempts to tamper with it. And this is what the Muslims have been doing for 1400 years ago. They've done a complete and thorough job with the Quran, the Sunnis. Why else do you think they're being punished? Oh, and they're the worst, because they have tampered with God's revelation in the sense that they have tried to pervert its meanings. You read in the Quran, right? Chapter 2, it talks about the Jews that twisted the meanings of the words. This is not a new science, by the way. This was done with the Quran as well. So by doing this, they've changed the Quran's context, and they've changed the meanings. Really, that's what it comes down to. So, to reiterate, the miracle is that in spite of the Muslims' attempts to change the word of God, they were unable to change one word. You see, one word. Why? You have the word of Makkah in the Quran. You also have the word of Bakka. One word. They couldn't change the Bakka to Makkah. They had to come up with this whole fictional story that Bakka is the old name of Makkah. No, these are separate places. But one letter they couldn't change. You understand? This is what gives you faith in God's revelations. It's people like this that are giving you faith. You understand? Anyway. Okay, one last one, and I think I'll wrap this up. Okay, thank you so much, sir. But in chapter 48, verse 24, the word Makkah is present. So could it be Bakka in chapter 3, verse 96, and this Makkah are the same place? Jazakallah khair. And the response to that is no. These are two separate places, Bakka and Makkah. And this is the fiction again that the Muslims have concocted, that the Bakka is the old name of Makkah. It's not what the Quran says. Anyway, God willing, I'm gonna keep. I guess I'll make other videos down the line about older comments. I think this is helpful. At least it gets people who are interested in knowing, who are sincere into actually questioning and trying to use their brains. That's all I can do, to be honest with you. God willing, until next time, peace and blessings be upon you.